Welcome back to the show. We're talking about world reaction to the nuclear test conducted by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea last Friday. Let's get back to our panel. Eunjung, let me start with you this time. Ambassador Hill spoke to go about the deployment of the THAAD system in the Republic of Korea, or a system that's developed by the United States, will be deployed by the United States. There was an opinion piece published in China Daily newspaper over the weekend said that the nuclear test conducted by the DPRK should not come as a big surprise given the US plan to deploy THAAD in South Korea. To what extent is that driving the DPRK's actions?
THAAD is not, I don't think THAAD is the determining factor.
Yeah.
I mean, to change whatever those North Korea's intention or behavior, especially since Kim Jong-un came to the office, their intention became crystal clear. Probably during his father's period, they sometimes tried to play with this card as a kind of bargaining chip for the better negotiations, but still, this time, or ever since the Kim Jong-un came to the office, his intention or Pyongyang's intention is crystal clear. So I don't think, again, the decision on the THAAD deployment was the determining factor to influence their intention. Rather than that, now more and more, as I mentioned during the previous session, again, more and more South Korean people need a more concrete countermeasurement for any contingency. So that is why more and more South Korean people also think THAAD, even though THAAD is not a panacea, or it is not almighty panacea at all. It is only one method, but still we want to build a kind of multi-layered missile defense system to, again, to countermeasure any contingency.
Ambassador Hill, could THAAD become a bargaining chip in these negotiations? Because concern over the deployment of THAAD has also been expressed by China, which says that it's a threat to peace and stability in the region. Would THAAD factor into any negotiations at all?
Well, at this point, we have a North Korea that seems to be very resolute in carrying out a military program and carrying out military tests. They have ignored, even spoken with contempt of all UN Security Council resolutions that were supported by the United States, China, Russia, everybody. So we have a regime that simply doesn't care what anyone says. They don't care about sanctions. They've scoffed at these sanctions. So I think we're at the point where the United States, if this alliance with South Korea is to be meaningful, we absolutely have to help South Korea defend itself, and that's what THAAD is about. If the North Koreans were to enter back to negotiations, again, show concrete steps to denuclearization, I'm sure there wouldn't be a need for THAAD. But at this point, we see no sign that North Korea is interested.
Tong Zhao, the Chinese intention is to denuclearize the peninsula. They don't want to see any nuclear weapons on the peninsula at all. If the deployment of THAAD goes through, if it goes ahead, what impact will it have on those efforts to denuclearize the peninsula?
First of all, I think there is a direct connection between North Korea's fifth nuclear test and the deployment of THAAD in South Korea. The North Koreans knew that given the troubled relations between China and South Korea and China and the United States, China would be left with very few good options to respond to North Korean provocations. So THAAD does play a major role here. But regarding North Korea, we have to understand the primary objective of North Korea to develop nuclear weapons is to achieve a nuclear deterrent against South Korea and the United States. It does not have any other more ambitious objectives. And therefore, if the missile defense systems undermine North Korea's nuclear deterrent, it will only encourage North Korea to double down on its missile and nuclear developments. And also, from the offense-defense balance of military technologies, at this point, it's much easier and cheaper for North Korea to build better and build more nuclear missiles than for the South Koreans and United States to deploy a workable missile defense system. The North Koreans can simply build up their stockpile to overwhelm the missile defense system. Therefore, a missile defense system doesn't really provide real security for South Korea or the United States. In the long term, missile defense undermines, Chinese and Russian interests. This is due to the very sad geographical proximity between North Korea and China, and therefore any missile defense system that can defend against North Korean missiles will somewhat also affect Chinese systems. And therefore, if China believes that its core national security interests are undermined by South Korea and the United States, China will be in a worse place to really cooperate with South Korea and the United States to deal with North Korean provocations.
All right, Ambassador Hill, where does it all go to from here? Are the six-party talks still the best way to move forward?
I don't think it really matters whether they're four-party, six-party, or 66-party. I think the issue is whether North Korea is really interested in denuclearizing. Now, we've heard that, it's pretty clear that what the North Koreans would like to see is they would freeze their testing in return for essentially what would amount to an abrogation of the U.S.-South Korean alliance. Well, the U.S. and South Korea is not going to do that. Of course, the North Koreans should be welcome to come back through the door, but I think it's important to understand that they walked out. They have completely ignored UN Security Council resolutions. They've created a situation where North Korea has the right to do whatever it wants to do, regardless of what everyone else thinks they should do. And I really think the North Koreans, are creating these terrible tensions, and these tensions will result in things that the Chinese don't like, such as THAAD, but this is an inevitable result of nuclear testing. And so the North Koreans need to understand that they have started this dance, and that we don't have the option of backing away and creating problems with our allies in Northeast Asia.
Tong Zhao, what do you think? Where is this all going to get us to?
Well, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi proposed a dual-track approach to deal with North Korea's nuclear program, which is to simultaneously pursue denuclearization with replacing the armistice with a peace treaty on the peninsula. I think that's a very general proposal, but to be more specific, a near-term goal really should be set to try to freeze North Korean nuclear and missile program as soon as possible. The North Koreans demand that in order for it to stop nuclear tests, South Korea and the United States should suspend joint military exercises. I think that's a cost that should be acceptable to them. There is no way that we can reach any deal without taking any compromises. And I think that's a reasonable compromise because it does not really require a very complicated verification regime. And it is not very costly to implement that type of agreement because if you believe that the other side is cheating, you can easily resume your previous activity. So I think that's something that everyone should seriously explore.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us.